Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with Golden Opportunities Coaching. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome back to those of you seasoned veterans of what we do around here. And what we do around here is we bring about conversations about psychological, social, and coaching related topics in the most discernible and easy way possible. We do that as often as we can. We're approaching 500 audios, which hopefully is a milestone that we can all celebrate. We have 500 subscribers now. Would love to double that so we can give some of the proceeds that we get from monetizing the channel to charity. I'd love to be able to do that, especially in these difficult COVID times. Today we're going to talk about emotional burnout. We've all had it. What are some signs of it? Useful thing to know, especially if we're trying to balance ourselves out. If you are dealing with emotional regulation challenges or challenges related to kind of keeping your emotions under control, this is a great way to use coaching. If you're interested, you can go to the About Me section of this YouTube page and ultimately reach out, and that would be cool. You can do that through PO Perception on Twitter as well. But we'll run through these pretty quickly. So if you're always tired, your emotions cause you to use more energy, physically and psychologically, than when you're in a good emotional state. And so it's hard to be depressed. It's hard to be sad. It's hard to be angry, and it kind of depletes you. Think of yourself like a battery. So the more emotional you are, the more you wear your battery down. And when you have those issues, if you don't take time to rest and or can't rest, in other words, insomnia, or just your mind is always racing, you're never recharging. So imagine having a battery for your cell phone or your laptop or whatever, and you never charge it. Sooner or later, it's going to burn out. There's going to be no juice left in the battery. People with emotional burnout are people who have no juice, metaphorically, left in the battery. So the next is low levels of self care. The routine things that we do when we care about ourselves, get up, take a shower, comb our hair, brush teeth, and, change clothes and do all the things of daily living that the majority of people get to do, unless they're homeless or they have severe physical or mental limitations. Those things, when we're emotionally burnt out, they go by the wayside. It doesn't matter as much. So you might lounge around in your pajamas for 2 weeks and nobody notices because, for the most part, social isolation becomes a part of that. And then there's a lot of challenges that go along with trying to get back to a level where you can perform, which is another factor in the whole process. Your level to perform professionally and socially is lower. So, professional performance being lower means you might not hit your deadlines, you might be tense or mean to coworkers, you might take things out on customers, you might forget procedures in your workplace or at home, you might forget to maintain your core relationships. And it's all because performing on a daily basis, the tasks that require energy from you becomes harder and harder as your burnout increases. The next thing is you have a lot of difficulty with emotional regulation and emotional control. Now, emotional control is the idea that just because you feel something doesn't mean you should act on it. This is especially true with negative emotion. Who wants to deal with a person who's constantly angry or crying all the time or yelling all the time or having emotional outbursts? But the more close you are to burnout, the harder it is to regulate those emotions in terms of keeping yourself level in public settings. Now, that's not to say that we have to be performers all the time, wearing emotional masks and pretending everything's fine, but at the same time, it's safe to kind of let go a little bit with a close friend or family member or a partner. Not so safe to do it in the middle of the street or in the middle of the subway. But people who are going through emotional burnout don't have the neurosynaptic functional capacity nor the willingness on a mental or emotional level to control how they behave a lot of times. And that's where you see people get into legal trouble and domestic disputes and all sorts of other unfriendly things. Most of those people are far past burnout before they even realize they have a problem. The next is depression and sadness. So a person who's burnt out really can't feel like things are going to get better. So the lower level emotions, anger, sadness, despondency, despair, isolation, separation, confusion, and all of those emotions kind of go together into a ball of emotional twine, so to speak. And then what begins to happen is you feel as though nothing will ever change, and that becomes your resting rate of emotion. This especially happens for people that might have chemical dependencies or chemical abnormalities in their brain from untreated mental illness for an extended period of time. Also, more likely for people that have a lot of trauma or have gone through trauma recently, or even women who struggle with postpartum depression. All of these things can contribute to or be contributing factors to emotional burnout. The next thing is social nature of things. You become less social because you don't want to put on the mask. So a lot of that leads to social isolation. Maybe you do the same repetitive tasks all day. Maybe you sleep more than you should. You eat more than you should. Maybe you become fixated on that video game or that book or the fantasy world. Maybe binging TV or comic books. But all of these things lead you away from being socially connected. So you don't have to answer the question of how are you really, right? And so that's a sign too. The last is you don't have hope. Now, having hope in today's world, especially with COVID and all the challenges that have existed for the last year plus, is extremely difficult. However, most people have hope in something. Maybe that COVID will lift sooner rather than later. Maybe that, they'll get back in touch with a friend or be able to go back to a hobby or get a new job, find a new relationship or something. People with emotional burnout can't even think that far ahead enough to have hope in nearly anything, and that burnout level is a sign of that. So hopefully this has been helpful. I encourage you to keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Till next time, everybody.